Hey, I'm Josh Holmes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Midwinter Entertainment, which is a small indie developer based out in Seattle, Washington.
Josh, what are you showing here at E3 2019?
So today, or all week, I guess, we're showing our first game that we're building, which is a game called Scavengers. Scavengers is a survival shooter co-opetition that blends together elements of exploration, combat, and survival into a repeatable session-based multiplayer experience. Yeah, I was going to say, co-opetition for us is kind of this made-up word that represents the intersection of cooperation and competition. And one of the things that's really unique about Scavengers is that all of the teams that are engaged in each session have one shared objective that they're trying to achieve together. But at the same time, they're being individually rewarded. So there's always this push and pull between, how long do we work together and sort of focus on PvE, and at what point do we potentially turn on one another and the focus shifts more to PvP.
So talk about how you're making, this is a survival game at its core. We've seen other survival games, like Rust is a big example, I can think of off the top of my head. So how are you making this game? Are there stats? Is there food stats, health stats, stamina stats, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, because this is a session-based experience, it's not super deep in terms of tons of number crunching and stuff, but you do have some really important survival stats you need to pay attention to. The game takes place in a winterized world, so maintaining heat and not sort of freezing to death is a big part of the game. You also need to eat and sort of maintain energy, so you don't get too hungry. And then within this world, there's a disease and infection that has spread called the Scourge. And as you engage Scourge monstrosities and combat them, you can become infected yourself. And so that's something that you need to manage as well as you're moving through the game.
So are there classes in the game? Do you choose a loadout before you go in? Are weapons and armor pickups inside the game itself?
Yeah, so this is a game set in this future where the moon has been shattered by an asteroid, and that's blotted out the sun, and it's thrusted into this winterized state. You play one of a group of survivors that have been placed in preservation aboard a space station in near-Earth orbit. And so when you play the game, you choose from 8 different characters. Each of those characters have unique strengths and abilities. And one of the things that's cool about the game is each character comes with a robotic companion that we call a keeper. And the keeper does a couple of things. Number one, it is the conduit for your special ability as a character. So each character has a unique special ability. For example, Callie can cloak herself and go invisible. Halden can create a healing aura that applies to all of his teammates to support them in combat. But in addition to that, the Keeper is like a mobile 3D printer of sorts. So as you move through the world, the Keeper absorbs materials and resources that you can then use to craft things. That can be your character's special weapon, your character's gear upgrades, as well as a number of items that help you survive in the world. And those are all things that you need to decide, which things do I want to bring in as part of my loadout as I go into each one of these survival sessions.
So each character essentially kind of has like a build order, like an RTS?
Yeah, exactly. It's got a little bit of an RTS element to it, where you're kind of managing the resources and making these really tough decisions about what do I want to build as I go through the game. And a lot of the things that unlock for you within your Keeper, they're sort of gated by your level progression within a session. So as you're going through a session, you're focusing on the objective. As you're completing those objectives, that allows you to level up and then gain access to new and more powerful things within your Keeper's loadout.
How long does a typical session last?
So sessions vary in length, but somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes is typical. And there's, one of the cool things about this game is it's a very sandbox game. Sessions can go in a number of different directions. You can have a session that completes quite quickly because everybody focuses on the shared objective, and that brings down the dropship so that there can be an extraction moment. You have other sessions where people focus very heavily on PvP and kill off most of the players, in which case, you can have a complete wipe of everybody where nobody actually ends up surviving. So session length varies quite a bit.
So is it just one big map and you spawn at a random location, or is it like procedure generated environments?
So it's one large contiguous map, and then each team spawns at different locations around the map. And when you first start out each session, you're sort of figuring out, okay, what's our plan for the session ahead? Where do we want to go? How should we direct ourselves around the map? You can either move on foot, there's vehicles that you can build within the world and use those to get around more quickly. So really it's just a lot of options at disposal of players, and that's what we love about it.
So do you spawn all together in one big group, or do you spawn in multiple places alone on the map?
So it's multiple teams of 3, and each team spawns in their own location. So at the beginning of each session, the teams are sort of spread out, and there's not an immediate threat of PvP. But then as the teams are pursuing their objectives around the map, that brings the teams potentially into conflict with one another. And there's sort of choices there about, like, do we engage early, do we wait until later in the game, or do we try to avoid PvP altogether?
Can you give us kind of a rundown of what a basic gameplay session from like start to finish kind of goes like? Like you land, you start to gather materials, like kind of go through that.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about a typical session of Scavengers has like 3 main phases. So the first phase is what we call the explore phase, and this is where teams start out at their drop pod location, and they're spreading out and starting to gather up resources, items, equipment, arm themselves with some basic weaponry that they find within the world. And then from there, they're planning, okay, what's our plan for the session ahead? Where do we want to go? And the main phase of each session is what we call the hunt. And this is where teams are going out, they're completing objectives. Their objective is to gather samples of Scourge DNA from around the map and bring that back to the space station so it can be analyzed. And so they're going out and they're engaging in these PvE encounters to gather these samples. As they're doing that, they're completing these objectives, which is helping them level up. They're unlocking new things that their keeper can craft. They're becoming more powerful. And if they can all collectively achieve the mission goal for that session, that then leads us to the final phase, which is extraction. And that's where the station AI sends down a dropship to retrieve all of the explorers and bring them back to the station. And all the players then at that point, the various teams are moving to one location, which is the extraction zone, and trying to get aboard that ship. And that's obviously an opportunity for a lot of mayhem and potentially murder, depending on how people are playing.
So you don't have to kill the other team. You can just say, hey, let's all get the extraction together and be good. And what's the incentive of killing the other team?
So the incentive of killing the other team is if you want to take their samples, which is like the scoring item for the game. So it is completely viable and possible for a team to avoid PvP and sort of go about the mission in a cunning way that is avoiding that type of conflict. And they can race their way to the dropship, get aboard, and that can be a victory condition for them. Another team might choose to be more of a hunter, where they're actively going out and seeking other teams and trying to take away their samples, and they're not really participating in that shared mission goal, but instead just trying to murk everybody and take their shit. If you do that, though, you sort of run the risk of, like, if we don't accomplish our shared goal, we all die. So, there's this constant kind of push and pull, and that's the heart of what we termed co-opetition.
Yes. When did your game come out, and what platforms will it be on?
So right now our focus for Scavengers is on PC as our lead platform. We're actually in closed playtests throughout this year. We're slowly ramping up the participants in those playtests, and we're using that to help refine the game experience. If people want to join in on those playtests, they can go to scavengersgame.com and sign up, playtest with us on PC. We're looking at a 2020 release. We haven't said exactly when. A lot of that is going to be dependent on how we iterate and refine the game along with our community that's playing it with us. And then PC being our lead SKU, but still keeping an eye to console down the road.
Will the game be free to play, or is it a premium price?
So this is a free-to-play title. We want as many players to come in and experience this game. We want to build a really strong, vibrant community for Scavengers. We think that is crucial for any multiplayer experience. And so we're going to be allowing players to come in and play the game for free. It's a character-based game, so you'll be able to have a number of characters that you can unlock and use for free, and then from there we'll be allowing people to purchase characters and cosmetics and things like that.